Hi guys, this is IceMayne. Welcome back to the channel. Now today's video is actually going to be a review of the recently released Marvel's Avengers from Crystal Dynamics. It's a third-person action-adventure game that combines an original cinematic story with single-player and cooperative gameplay. Now the game can be played offline as a single-player experience or online with your buddies up to 4 people during certain aspects. Now the review is going to be broken up into 7 categories: storyline, graphics and presentation, gameplay and combat, the multiplayer online experience, additional content, comparisons and my opinion, and then finally the verdict. Now I have actually timestamped the following categories within the description of the video, so if you want to jump to a certain section, go ahead.
Let me check it out at once. Try to keep up. This just got a whole lot more interesting.
So the first section is the storyline. This is the meat and potatoes which everybody wants to find out about. What is the game truly about? Why should I buy this game? And what storyline are they going to implement? Now the game's main storyline takes place 5 years after A-Day. A-Day will predominantly be the footage that you will have seen from all the trailers that they released prior to release. Now, what is meant to be a celebratory day for the Avengers results in death and destruction, of which they are blamed for. The team is forced to reassemble and save the world from peril in the form of AIM, Advanced Idea Mechanics, a classic enemy from the comics, but there is also a supervillain running the show which I won't disclose as to not spoil the story. While the premise of the Reassemble campaign is the classic "let's get the band back together" trope, Kamala Khan, aka Ms. Marvel, serving as the protagonist, actually elevates it. Ms. Marvel is the main character and a fantastic protagonist at that. She's emotive, relatable, and actually pretty enjoyable to play with, surprisingly, considering the star-studded cast she's up against. The story follows the on-paper guidelines for what a superhero game should be. It's got action, plot twists, and a baddie to hate on, but it never truly elevates past that. It is a fairly vanilla superhero story, in truth, albeit a good one. The main storyline is only 10 hours of gameplay long, though. This has had mixed feedback, with the majority saying it was too short. With the game being promoted as a live service game similar to the likes of Destiny, it does have promise going forward, with lots of content expected in the coming months, which should keep gamers engaged. I personally found the campaign lengthy enough to enjoy, short enough to have me wanting more. One of my favourite things about Marvel's Avengers game is the characters. Care has gone into each individual character creation, and it really does show. Each hero could very well be the star of their own game. This is something which I hope when DLC comes along will mean we get a mini introductory campaign of sorts for each character's release. The main characters to play with are Thor, the Hulk, Iron Man, Captain America, Black Widow, and Ms. Marvel. Thor is perhaps my favourite Avenger, not only from the MCU, but playing on this game is an absolute delight. The weight of Mjolnir just feels so good. Each time Mjolnir lands a hit on an enemy, you feel the vibration, and it's satisfying as hell. Smaller vibrations for normal hits and big ones for heavy attacks. This haptic precision is a small feature, but it adds so much weight, especially when you throw Mjolnir at enemies, pinning them to walls, and then feeling the vibration of Thor snatching the hammer from the air as it flies back towards you. Pair that with raining down some godlike lightning and you feel, to put it simply, powerful. While Thor feels like rampaging in God of War, Iron Man is on par with zipping around in Anthem, but Iron Man handles so much better than Anthem's combat suits. Said simply, his flying feels great. The sensitivity wasn't too much. I could seamlessly move up, down, left, right, side to side without flying off much further than anticipated. Now, from the ground, Iron Man is just as capable. He can flawlessly hover into the air, firing rockets and shooting as he goes, sometimes even blasting enemies into flames with his laser. Let's just ignore the part where superheroes somehow don't kill people.
If you've ever wanted to relive the scene from the Avengers film where Hulk picks up Loki and smashes him into the ground like a rag doll, well, you're in luck. Hulk can easily pick up smaller enemies and slam them off everything. The ground, other goons, rocks, you name it. It's as easy as you would imagine it to be for the big guy. If that's not enough, Hulk can also pick up rocks, which annoyingly materialise out of nowhere, and chuck them at enemies, and even uses his thunderclap to clear entire groups. He's also surprisingly agile, jumping across large gaps with relative ease and without ever feeling clunky or heavy. By contrast, Black Widow is Hulk's opposite. The spindly former spy plays like a cross between Tomb Raider and Blood Rain. Natasha Romanoff is fast, agile, and the ultimate hand-to-hand fighter. She's actually probably the most enjoyable character to fight people with. Black Widow's combat mechanics mainly see her in close combat, grabbing, punching, kicking. However, she also starts with a set of dual pistols to allow for range attacks, a la Lara Croft. Then we have Cap. Captain America encompasses the hard-hitting weapon of Thor with the agility of Black Widow. Cap dodges and weaves for enemies using his vibranium shield to block heavy attacks or simply to bash enemies' heads in. But the most satisfying move Cap starts with is the ability to throw his shield and quickly knock out every enemy in the radius, like a boomerang of hurt and justice. Finally, there's Kamala Khan, aka Ms. Marvel. As a polymorph, Kamala is super stretchy and can make her hands huge to knock the hell out of waves of enemies. These super stretch abilities also mean she can make herself giant, trampling any unfortunate soul in her way, and swing herself across those pesky gaps. In terms of graphics and sounds, solid for a current gen game and nothing we haven't seen before. Very well designed characters, scenery, and overall I was satisfied with the level of detail. Cinematics were great, and the only negative I have to say is probably the frame rate drops when things get a bit chaotic occasionally. The game features are easy to navigate with very simplified menus. You've got 3 sections to the home screen. You've got campaign, initiate, which is the multiplayer, and settings. Then within the game, a tab system when viewing characters, which makes things easily accessible and clear to use. Loading screens can be a pain in the arse though, so hopefully come next gen these will be much faster. The game features customization options, including abilities and costumes, which can be upgraded using a skill tree. The skill tree system is very basic, but it does the job it needs to, with you unlocking a variety of moves as you progress. Costumes have been sourced from all corners of the Marvel Universe and can be earned in-game or brought separately as DLC or with a season pass. There are a few duplicate costumes with a different colour scheme, but overall I was happy with the range of them available to players, with much more to come in the future, I'm sure. In terms of gear or loot, it is very rudimentary. Starting with the basics, every hero has 4 main gear slots. 1 improves your melee, 1 your ranged, 1 your defense, and 1 your heroic abilities. You also have 3 slots for artifacts, which offer more general buffs like elemental resistances, or rare unique skills like increasing your chance to find better gear on missions. Each item has a generic power level that influences both that hero's stats and their overall power level. Its loot and gear system is akin to Destiny, but a lot less interesting. The gear is strictly statistical, and cosmetics being an entirely different section altogether. Lastly, level design. The level design is very limited, where you feel deja vu on a regular basis. Missions can often repeat themselves, so after the 3rd time of doing it, it can become very tedious. The objectives will change slightly, but whether you're told to control a point, break some objects, or fight some dudes, they all blur together without any big or memorable moment. That is one negative, I would say, in terms of the scope of missions and variety. In terms of gameplay, controls and functionality, I found they kept things very simple and it worked tremendously. Despite being very different, each character is functionally similar when it comes to controls. They've got a light attack, a heavy attack, a dodge, a defensive move, and individual ability moves. This means you can jump between each hero seamlessly and continue to bust up robots without struggling with the controls for a new character.
As touched on earlier when discussing characters, each character has their own individual feel, which really does stand out. Each character offers a different experience. For the most part, I found the gameplay very smooth. Only the odd occasion while jumping to platforms, for example, did it bug out. But on the whole, the most important aspect of this game is the gameplay, and I do think they nailed it. With the multiplayer being heavily campaign spoiler driven, and without ruining anything for you, you're given a new main mission chain, a new reason to keep busting Aim's ass, along with a bunch of tasks to complete. These can be very repetitive though. There have been talks of a potential raid type mode akin to Destiny where you work together to fight classic villains. Now this is something I would absolutely fall in love with. I feel the lack of battles versus classic villains is a serious negative to Avengers, especially during the campaign. There's only so much robots I can destroy before I get bored. As for matchmaking during strike missions, this can take a while, so it is probably best advised to play with your friends if possible. It just makes the experience a whole lot more enjoyable. With randoms, teamwork is about as rare as an Infinity Stone. This section is where I think Crystal Dynamics are going to redeem themselves in the future. They've revealed that future heroes will be added free of charge, starting with Hawkeye and Kate Bishop, which will include their own story content. This has me excited. Spider-Man also was announced as a second DLC, exclusive to PlayStation though. Fuck you, Sony. There is a microtransaction element to the game, as expected with modern games, along with a season pass to give you more additional content, costumes, moves, emotes, just to keep you chasing more. Naturally, I expect them to change the content seasonally, like every other game that has a battle pass system. The game is set to be released as a launch title for the Xbox Series X in November and for the PlayStation 5 in Q4 2020. So I look forward to many updates and a lot more additional content. I suppose the nearest comparison people make is naturally its other superhero counterpart, Spider-Man. You've got other superhero games like Marvel's Ultimate Alliance, but I don't think they fit in this category. Spider-Man to me is one of the best games I've ever played, especially in recent years, so it could be an unfair comparison. It had an in-depth engaging story, the gameplay was phenomenal, and overall it was a fun experience every time I played. I don't think Avengers is quite as good as Spider-Man in truth. It misses the mark with repetitive side missions, a pretty linear story and a boring loot system. As much as I do enjoy playing it, the current iteration is a bit lacking, and I will wait to see what the future holds with content and updates. With it being on next gen, they may release a richer, more polished version come that time. Overall though, in terms of a verdict, I would give it currently 3 stars with the potential to rise to 4. Short term, it's a lot of fun. Long term, at present, it feels a little bit empty at the end game. Overall, I do really enjoy the game. I just can't sink hours on end into it due to the repetitive nature of missions at present. But the good thing about a live service game is that it has time to change. Marvel's Avengers has certainly had a rocky start and is nowhere near as super as the name would suggest, but with Crystal Dynamics planning to support the game long term, it has the potential to recover and deliver the experience we were all expecting. I would recommend probably playing with your friends, that way you would get the most out of it. That wraps up the review though guys, thanks for those that watched. If you do like the video, please like below and subscribe, and as always, stay frosty.
Some say they were set up. Others call them murderers.
Do the Avengers pose a danger to society? That was the question, Bruce. That was the question.
Well, we all lost something that day. But that's not how this story ends.